22 and head coach Dave Aranda as well. We just heard from Sophia Young. Malcolm is a part of the new staff with Nikki Collin at Baylor. We'll have that up on the site and also our various Twitter timelines and as much more here momentarily. But how about this picture? No, we don't have it yet? We don't have it yet, Paul?
Yeah, I'm trying to save
it.
Hold on.
Okay. Got a picture for you here in just a second. We'll get that to you. Richard Reese, as I mentioned, the running back at Belleville. Craig, your thoughts about Richard Reese and what you know about him or what you've seen about him, and that's a part of the class of 2022.
Well, I mean, we'll have to wait for Grayson to get more of a breakdown because I'm not a film guy. Don't pretend to be, but I like the numbers that I saw. I like the, nearly 4,000 yards of offense over the last 2,000 seasons and over 4,000 over the last 3 seasons. So obviously he moves forward, and we know with their running back position that they have, publicly commented, whether it be, Dave Aranda or Jeff Grimes about, having a guy just run straight forward. And that's why Abram Smith moved back to running back. That's why Abram Smith might be their, lead running back this year, even though he wasn't even a part of the group to begin spring practices. They just liked what he did. So I think they're identifying their type of player and exactly what they're looking for. And maybe that's not all entirely on campus just yet. So they're building for the future. And Richard Reese is a guy who chews up a lot of yards, seems pretty dynamic, and obviously is a bell cow for Belleville. So he seems to fit kind of, what they're looking for as far as just getting downhill, running forward and getting yardage. So from that standpoint, I think it's a good pickup. It doesn't have a super sexy offer list or anything like that, but I think that can be overrated at times. I mean, certainly when you see somebody with Alabama, Florida, LSU, all those types of offers, they're a special type of a talent, but there are diamonds in the rough, and I think Richard Reese might be a little bit of one of those.
So here is a picture. Lane Pittman sent this to me, the daughter of Donnell and Grant Taft. This is Coach Taft just chilling, right? And that device in his hand is a phone. And Grant Taft is now a premium member of SicEm365. Lane had a lot to do with helping set up the phone. He's listening right now on the SicEm365 app. He says thanks, and he loves it. How cool is that? Well, thank you, Coach. Thank you, Lane.
It's day one in studio. Actually, that might have been day 0 because we weren't doing anything other than that in the studio that day was the Coach Taft interview. But so day 0 in the studio, before we even had this up, nothing but kind of this was up. All this was a mess behind everything that you see. Some of this wasn't even here. And so we had Coach Taft in to record the interview, and the first thing he said was, you got to teach me how to download this, or how do I get your show? And we're like, well, it's on the phone. And the look he gave me when I said, well, it's on the phone was like, Paul.
Yeah.
Come on, buddy.
Yeah. So that's great news. So. And again, the app is something that's for a lot. For me, it's something that I had to kind of learn to get through. But how about that, Craig? He was here part of day 0, as Paul mentioned, and now Coach Taft, the great Coach Taft we've had on many times, is now watching and listening to us on the app on SicEm365.
I think that's awesome, and if you're a Baylor fan who's not a member, I think, what more do you need to know other than Grant Taft's a member? And I can assure you that there are other coaches, even currently on staff, that peruse those boards and look around and keep up with, what's going on the site, because it is such a growing community of Baylor fans. So, yeah, I mean, over the last couple months between the men's team and then, the Mulkey transition, the hire of Nikki Collin, now the hire of Sophia Young, spring football, it's been a really busy but great time. And then, now you've got men's tennis, you've got baseball, you've got, all sorts of stuff still going on. So definitely jump on board. I mean, if it's good enough for Grant Taft, it's good enough for everybody else that's wanting to know about Baylor athletics. And so, yeah, just really appreciate him and the whole family for their support from day one, basically, like you said.
He was a part of day 1, the show, Lane. Again, we appreciate Lane Taft Pittman for helping us out. Donnell listening as well. They just dropped off a little something with us that we're going to have something be able to put up on the wall here in the studio of the legend himself, the icon in Grant Tapp. We'll hear from Grayson Grunhafer here momentarily. Richard Reese of Belleville as well. In fact, Grayson now ready and joins us on SicEm365 Radio. And Grayson, thank you very much. Richard Reese will join us in the next segment. Let's discuss and break him down. Your thoughts about what it means and kind of the journey of him becoming a Baylor commit.
Yeah, it's a really interesting, I guess, situation, because if you look at Richard's offers, just Houston Baptist and Texas State before Baylor offered a couple days ago. Obviously, it did not take long for him to make a decision to commit to the Bears. I know that Juice Johnson played a big role in his recruitment, which makes total sense because, of course, Juice is the Baylor running back coach. So if you look at Richard Reese's film, though, he does something, and I think everyone basically on the board has pointed this out. He gets downhill in a hurry, and that is something that these running backs on the Baylor roster really are trying to adapt to, and it's something that is really needed in Jeff Grimes' offensive scheme. So he does a great job with that, and I think that is a huge reason why Baylor was so interested in him. He does a great job, of course, at getting downhill in a hurry, the one-cut ability, much like a John Lovett gave to Baylor for the past 3 years. And so I think Richard Reese is going to fill that role really well. He's only about 5'10", 175, but I think if you turn on the film, he looks bigger than that. He also looks fast. I mean, he looks explosive, runs away from guys. So I think he's going to be a prospect who, when people see him on the field, a lot of people are going to wonder, why does he only have 3 offers? And when people see him at camps, if he goes to a bunch of other camps, I think, again, people are going to be like, man, how did so many schools miss out on this kid? Because I think he's a fantastic runner. And as far as the 2022 class goes, this is kind of what we've been talking about. I've been pretty consistent saying that the staff was going to take a running back in this class. Even though they're pretty deep at that position, they were going to take one. And that's exactly what they did with Richard Reese.
Well, Grayson, I think you kind of illustrated why, is that if they don't have a guy in that large group that does exactly what they want, then they're going to go and try to find somebody who fits what they do. And then maybe those other guys get moved into other kind of roles within the running back position or maybe other positions. But, that's why Abram Smith's back at running back, right? Because they want somebody who gets, downhill fast.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And if anything, this is just going to push the current guys on the roster to get better at it. Or, you're going to have to find a different position because it's an absolute necessity in this offense. And guys like, Abram Smith and Squirrel Williams are going to have a lot of success in that. But a lot of the other guys, you were running a different scheme last year, and now you're having to adjust to it. Now, do I think the guys on the current roster can do that? Absolutely. Quaylon Jones, Jonah White, of course, Treston Ebner. And when Jordan Jenkins gets there, I don't think he's going to have any problem getting downhill in a hurry either. So I think these guys will adjust and adapt, but I think adding a guy like Richard Reese gives them another option moving forward, especially once 2022 is finished up.
I have a non-running back question, Grayson, but I do have one running back question first. So in your mind, this is the only back they're taking?
Yes, 100%. I would be stunned if they took another running back. They might take an athlete who plays running back, if that makes sense. But I do believe this will be the only for sure running back that they take in this class.
All right, and he obviously is not the only commit from the last few days. Bryce Simpson, the big offensive lineman, also pledging. We have not talked to you, or you and I talked on the podcast, but for those that haven't listened or aren't on the boards, your thoughts on Bryce Simpson as well and his commit this past week.
Yeah, this one is massive, and really, anytime we talk about an offensive line commit, it's a big one. But for Bryce Simpson, Baylor was his first offer. He's 6'6", 310 pounds. Baylor found him early. Of course, that Cy Ranch connection continues to build for Baylor as it just seems like every class they've been able to land a prospect from Cy Ranch. And that's an attribute to Baylor and also to Cy Ranch for putting out terrific athletes as well. And Bryce is another guy that fits that bill. And you look at his film, very strong, a guy that moves people extremely well. He'll get that term a mauler. You know what I mean? He's going to get upfield. He's going to find someone to block and do his best to get them out of the play. And he does a really good job of that. Now, at the next level, it's going to be very interesting to see where he fits in. I know the staff used him as a right tackle or a guard. I think that's probably where he's going to fit into things. And they've been needing a right tackle for a long time, and I think Bryce could be that guy in the future. He had a good offer list. Ole Miss, Utah, Colorado, SMU, Houston are probably the top offers. But I would say a lot of people have to understand that he was I'm not going to say he was basically committed to Baylor for a long time, but he definitely was leaning towards Baylor for a long time in his recruitment, which obviously kind of turns programs away, I would say, at times. So I think he's a little bit under-recruited for what he is, and he's a guy that was a priority for this Baylor staff from day one. And for Eric Mateos, James Blanchard, Jeff Grimes, Dave Aranda to build a relationship with him and land, a guy who's 6'6", 310 pounds as a junior in high school, that's massive.
So he's kind of a part of that controlled violence that Jeff Grimes talks about as an offensive lineman in this offense at some point?
Yeah, definitely. I think that you look at his film and you can probably say he looks different than the guys that they have on campus. And that's not a slight to the guys that they have on campus, but when you see a guy who could potentially play tackle and is already 6'6", 315 pounds, that's very rare to find as a guy who's actually athletic enough to play the tackle position. So it makes Bryce very unique and one that this staff wanted very badly, and they were able to land him.
So Grayson, they've got 3 O-line commits, and I know they'll probably want more than that. But let's take their class right now. Eliminate the D linemen and the O linemen from the conversation because we know they're going to want more of those guys. They've got 1 quarterback, so they're done there. They've got their running back, they're done there. So outside of O-line and D-line, and knowing they've got their running back and a couple tight ends and their quarterback, all that, where's the focus outside of the line play for the remainder of this class?
Yeah, and the positions you hit on, I think, are pretty much done. I mean, Zach Pyron at quarterback, Richard Reese at running back, I think they're done at both of those positions. Tight end, you got Kelsey Johnson and Cody Mladinka, but you also have Kyan Roberts-Day, who might fit into that tight end room as well. So I think they're pretty much done there. I would be stunned if they took another tight end in this class unless they just really don't like what they have on campus. So, I mean, you take those positions out and you're kind of left with an interesting position groups, I would say. When you have wide receiver, which they're going to need to take at least 2, but I think this class will take 3 at the end of the day, even though they did bring in quite a haul in the 2021 class for the wide receiver position. I just think there's too much talent to pass on wide receivers in the state this year. So, again, I think it'll probably be 3, could be 2. So that position they definitely need to address. And then, honestly, I mean, you look at it and you go, when are they going to add some secondary guys? Because they have 0 secondary guys currently committed, so no corners, no safeties right now. And the reason for that is because they have a lot of targets that are kind of those upper echelon targets. When you're talking about Jared Kerr, who's, in my opinion, a top 100 player in the entire country that they're trying to recruit. So he's kind of going to be one of those that you're going to wait a while to see where he ends up. Deuce Caldwell out of South Carolina, another guy who very, very highly touted, waiting to see what's going to happen with him. Robert Fitzgerald at Dallas Jesuit is another safety that they're waiting on. And cornerback is frankly the exact same way. They're kind of waiting on their top targets to either make decisions or cut Baylor out so that the Bears can move on to their next targets. I would say corner is looking more easy to fill for Baylor. I can see some guys that I think could end up being Bears relatively soon, I guess you could say. You know, when you talk about Jalen Peoples, who Baylor's been in the mix for a while now, Dylan McKinney out of Colleyville Heritage is another one, Anthony Davis out of Dallas Skyline are some cornerbacks that I think Baylor's pretty close with, along with Omari Evans, who could play receiver or cornerback. So, yeah, those positions, they really got to figure out how they're going to fill up a class with those targets. But I will say I think the official visit period coming up in June is going to be big for that, and hopefully they can solidify those positions because they really need some depth there in this 2022 class.
Grayson, thank you very much, man. It's been a good week with Bryce Simpson and also with Richard Reese.
We got to at least ask Grayson, any thoughts on men's tennis? No? Did we lose him?
No, he's still there.
Grayson, you there, buddy?
I got him. Is he potted up?
No, we lost him. Okay.
He didn't want to know. He didn't want to tell us.
Well, he's our men's tennis guy. Like, that's the men's tennis guy on staff. So, Ashley does equestrian. Grayson's got men's tennis. And everybody's got their little Paul with women's basketball, obviously. But no, obviously they're gearing up, and Sophia Young News is good enough as is. But I think this weekend could be, tennis plays Monday, right?
Right.
Yeah, so we won't talk to him before then. But anyways, other good stuff that he had to say. So we'll get him next time.
We will. And in fact, coming up next, we talked a lot about Richard Reese, the running back out of Belleville. Had a chance to speak with his father, his head coach Grady Rowe, among others. He'll join us next on SicEm365.